Wow, this seat already feels a little hot. First of all, I'd like to thank Herb. It's been an honor getting to know him over the last few years, over 5 years. I don't think there's ever been a more caring owner who really buys into what this is about, and that's about representing the community and being a part of the community. So I want to thank him. It's a little challenging because now I'm going to say thanks to the guy that just got off the stage. And what do you say to someone who has absolutely given you the opportunity of a lifetime? Larry's an amazing man. He's tough. He cares about the Pacers. We talk every single day about the Pacers, and I've learned a lot about basketball. He has a foundation that he feels like you have to play at. You have to play tough. You have to play unselfish. You have to play the right way. And there are many games when we left the arena where we would win, but he wouldn't be happy because we wouldn't do that. And then conversely, there'd be games where we would lose, and he'd be pretty happy because he felt like we did the right things. So I'm so grateful for that opportunity to work with him and learn next to him for the last 5 years. Thirdly, I'd like to thank Donnie Walsh. Donnie is, for everybody in here, we all know this, that he's like the father or the godfather of the Pacers. If you have an issue, if you are dealing with something, if you want some help in any way, his door was always open, and he cares about this organization to his core. And for him, to have him still stay is an amazing thing. I'm an Indiana boy. I partly grew up in Lawrence. Then I moved to Noblesville, Indiana, and I learned basketball. Well, I partly learned basketball at the Noblesville Boys Club. And the one thing that I know from growing up in Indiana is we are all fans. We start out as fans here. And we learn basketball. It's part of our roots. And it's funny as you go from junior high to high school, and how big the high school basketball games are. Every single one, the rivalries and how intense they get. And then you go on to the college games, and Notre Dame and Purdue and Indiana and Butler. People care about basketball in this state, and it's important. And it makes the Pacers so great because after every game we talk about it. And that's what makes it special. It makes it unique. And with that, I know how important this organization is to this community. And Herb Simon owns this team. But in reality, the most unique part of this is basketball is Indiana. Indiana is basketball. And so we're owned by our community. And that's totally unique to any other states. That's what we embrace. And so I feel that. I know how important it is. I want to do a great job. I grew up loving the Pacers. I snuck down, Rick won't like this, but me and my buddies, when I was 12, snuck down. We had high-level seats, and we snuck down and got pretty close to the floor. And I was able to meet Billy Keller when I was younger. And I'm sure everybody knows Billy Keller in here. And for the next 2 years, I would sit out at my basketball goal in the back by myself, and I thought I was Billy Keller. So it's an honor to be here. I know how important it is. I know that we can build and continue to build, and looking forward to the opportunity. Any questions?
The $100 million question, do you have any indication as to which way Paul is leaning, and how will you proceed from this point moving forward?
Bob, I've been on the job 2 minutes now, and but you got to ask it. Here's what I would say. I did exit interviews last week. Paul and I talked, I don't know, 45 minutes in an hour. We talked about a lot of different things. In every scenario, he talked about being here. And that's important. Him wanting to be here is important. And he kept coming back to one statement that hits me hard and that we all know, but he wants to win. I think picking up Lance late in the year made us a better team, got us into the playoffs. Lance energy and having two unique athletic wings in this business is a luxury, and I think we can build on that. We want to win. This organization has gotten to the playoffs. I heard this stat the other day, 22 out of 29 times. We want successful teams year in, year out, and that has to do with Paul. So the message was he wants to win. The Pacers want to win. We're on the same page.
Has he given you an indication that when he makes a decision, he will be forthcoming with you so that you know how to proceed, whether to move forward with him or make some kind of a deal so you don't end up?
I don't think there's any doubt that he'll be forthcoming. I think the one thing Paul realizes is that the Indiana Pacers drafted him, developed him, give him an opportunity to succeed, and you got to give the kid credit. He talked a lot about getting back to the Eastern Conference Finals, how much he enjoyed getting that deep and ultimately deeper. So I respect that, and I think he will.
Like you said, you've been on the job probably now 4 minutes, so there's been a little more time for research. Obviously, a huge summer, a lot of stuff that can happen. You have a history of being an active guy. As you approach this roster, generally speaking, what do you think are the primary needs to get this team from where it is to where you need it to be?
Well, let me say this. I think you have to be bold in this position. But the one thing I've learned from Larry is how important continuity is. I think when you say that I've been a deal maker or made moves, a lot of them have been in the summer and specifically in the draft. I don't mind moving up. Once I see someone in the draft that I think can really help us, I want to be aggressive that way because you identify Ryan Carr and our scouts do an amazing job of identifying talent, and then it's up to me to go figure out how to get them. So I like interchanging pieces. I like moving around in the draft. It doesn't mean it happens every time, but I want to be aggressive. I want to be out there and understand all the deals. I think that's what I did for Larry, and ultimately Larry either says yes or no, and that's why it worked so well with me and Larry.
Kevin, you have a lot of experience in this profession already. Anything in particular you learned from your years in Portland that you can transfer to this opportunity?
Yeah, you have to embrace the medical staff. And I feel like with Josh and Dan Dyrick, you have to listen to those guys. Sometimes you can get blinded by talent, and you want it to work, but unless guys can play, you can't play. So I would say learn from your medical staff. And then there were times where we got a little too active, and I felt like another year with the same team or a similar team would have really benefited everybody else. So it's that age-old thing of balance. Do you make changes, or do you buy into continuity? And I think it all depends on your timeline, too.
Kevin, would you like to re-sign Jeff Teague?
I think Jeff had a really good season. I think for the first, and I've spent some time with Jeff. Jeff is one of the players that I've gotten to know a little bit more. During the course of a year, you kind of ebb and flow with the relationships of your players. I'm going to embrace getting to know every one of them. The first 15 games, he wasn't comfortable. And then I thought he got more comfortable. And then at the end of the year, if you saw him react when we had Lance on the floor, he was a different player. I mean, he got his swag back, And that's something I'm looking forward to having conversations. We always want a fair deal, but we're open to negotiations with him. He did. And Larry said it, I think, probably best. He wants to be here. And how important is that? To me, that's critically important.
Kevin, I was
same guy about Teague. I don't know if you're able to talk about this stuff, but last year Conley got the contract he got. They have similar numbers. Can you see Teague on the open market commanding?
I'm not going to negotiate in a press conference. What, I don't understand. What's your question?
Just how much is he worth? Is he a max
I think
guy?
that's up to me and his agent and him, you know. I think it's been proven that we will take care of our guys in this organization. If we feel like it's the right move, we step up. We step up. You got to be unselfish. You got to be tough. You got to put the team first. But if you do that, this team Herb has always stepped up when it's time to. We kept Roy Hibbert when he got an offer sheet, a max offer sheet, and that was a team trying to steal a player from us. So I don't see that being the impetus for us keeping players.
Kevin, were you even a little bit surprised about how much of an impact Lance had so late and so quickly, and how do you see his role, not knowing how it's on the roster, but for next season, his possible role?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we all know Lance is crazy. But, you know, Larry and I talked about it a lot. And even in his contract situation, we knew him coming in could go a lot of different ways. But he was when we met with him, he was so hungry to get back here. And he was so appreciative to be back at the place where he had success. And so I think everybody felt the lightning bolt that came back into the arena when he stepped on the court. And as he gets more healthy, as he gets better in shape, we're going to ask more of him, because I know this. If you're watching the playoffs right now, you have to have multiple ball handlers to make plays. They can take one guy out all the time. You can take a guy out in the playoffs where you can game plan. It's tough to take out two. It's almost impossible to take out three, so that's my job. Now we have two. Can we get three?
In hearing from Larry earlier, you two have a great respect for one another and a very strong rapport. What
No
do you
doubt.
value most about the relationship that you two have built?
I don't know if I've ever been around a more direct communicator. When he says something, that's what he means. And, you know, it's interesting because we developed this relationship of agree, disagree, but as soon as the decision's made, we united. And no matter what, if I went in there with an idea and he didn't like it, you know, we united. And for me, I think that's what's got to sort of trickle down to this organization, that we all have open dialogues with our scouts, with the business side. We can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, we have to unite. That's sort of the foundation of a great organization. And so Larry and I did that all the time. And let me tell you, Larry wanted the truth. He wanted my truth, right? And so there were times he completely disagreed with what I said. And as soon as the decision was made, we did it. And I bought in 100%.
Kevin, last season's team seemed to be kind of caught in the middle in that it wasn't a strong rebounding team, rim protection team, but at the same time, you got outscored a lot at the three-point line. Do you want to go one way or the other? Do you need to shift toward, you know, getting in another big guy and rebounding better, or do you want to be a better scoring team? Is there a particular direction you need to go?
Well, I disagree with one thing in that I think Miles was the third best shot blocker in the team, in the league. And for a 21-year-old kid, I think we're developing him into being an elite rim protector. So I think we have that as an advantage. He also gives us an advantage in that he's a spread five. Now, for me, one of the hardest things watching our team was we walked out on the court and I felt like there were other teams that had a more physical, a bigger team. And you look at our teams that had success with the David West and the George Hill, I felt like we had size for position, and that ultimately led into us having a rebounding advantage. But again, I don't want to overstate what I feel about Lance. Lance brings a unique set of skills. He is one of the best defensive rebounding two guards in the league. And we missed that. We really missed that. So I want to get more physical. I want to get tougher. I want guys who are completely high energy. I think if you look at some of the teams that are successful, it gets a little positionless, and they just have flyers all over the court. And they just play a unique basketball where it's a drive and kick and shoot a lot of threes, and then back on defense you can switch. And so I'd like to get more to that.
In the back. I don't want to assume for a second that Larry's the only reason you were able to get guys in here, but a lot of the people we talk to, they say it was an honor to get, to come to this program, to this organization, because Larry is there at the top kind of looking down on everything. Is there a bit of an uphill battle now, knowing that he's not going to be part of that mix directly, and that you may have, I don't use the word trouble, but have trouble bringing guys in, knowing that he's not here?
I would say this, that if we have a free agent, Larry will be in the meeting. Larry is still a consultant. Larry would do anything for the Pacers that he can to make it better. And as a consultant, it's really him and I having weekly dialogues and texting, and it's a little bit of a switch of roles in that, he has to tell me his opinion when he sees a player or he sees something going on. He has to tell me that, and he will. He worries about stepping on toes. I do not. I have the utmost respect. He's got one of the best basketball minds that's ever lived. Him and Donnie have unique perspectives. But I see Larry as a person that sits beside me in meetings and says, hey, Kevin, what do you think about this? And that's kind of what I've done to him in the last few years. And there's so much respect on both sides that he can tell me anything, and whether I do it, that's up to me. And he'll buy in and he'll unite.
Off of that, Larry said he's a big fan of what he's seen with the budget coming up for next season. Anything you can add for some flexibility you're going to have?
Why don't you ask Kevin Bauer? He's right in. Put some pressure on him for once.
All right, here we go.
No.
Open the binder.
No, I'm just kidding. Here's the thing. Sometimes your timeline dictates what you're going to spend. Sometimes you got younger teams, and you're trying to develop those guys, and you put peripheral guys around them, and you don't spend as much. But once they're developed, and once you move into the second phase, you have to pay those guys to retain. And Herbie has been terrific about that. We want to do that. We want to have guys in here. We want to develop, and we want to be able to retain. That's no different than what the business side goes through.
Kevin, two things. First, what do you feel that this team needs overall to go from being a team that made the playoffs 22 out of 29 times to being a contender? And second, Larry said that he mentioned to you last year that that was going to be his last contract. Did that change the way you approached anything?
Not at all. I mean, we set out as a goal last year, and we felt very strongly about this, get into the playoffs. So goal number one attained. What was the second part of the question?
What the
team needs. Well, we're going through that process right now, and I think, I'd like to have a tougher team. We won at home. We did a great job at home. What it takes to win on the road is a whole new ball game. You have to be able to play physical, you have to play tough, and you have to amp your game up. Every single player has to be on the court knowing that it's going to be a tougher game. And so overall toughness is the one thing I want to add to this team. We used to be a hard hat and a lunch pail kind of a team, and that's what we were known for. And I'm not saying get back to that completely, because it's also, on the other hand, it's a very skilled league too.
Kevin, two questions. The first one's really small, but is anybody replacing you?
I haven't gone down that yet.
Okay. How important do you think, to the Paul George staying here, is him making one of the top three teams in the Supermax and all that? And how interested are you in that?
I think it's somewhat important, but at the end of the day, we want Paul to want to be here too. And if we can prove and we can show with our actions about what we do in free agency and the draft, I think he'll get more comfortable. And look, it's up to me to put a team around him and Lance right now, and him and Miles and Thaddeus, and make moves and develop some continuity as well. So we want to do that. That was the big thing when we talked. We kept talking about how do we get back. He was in the mode of how do we get back to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I thought that was a great sign.
Kevin, you had been here since 2011. You had been a GM. Obviously, you don't want Larry to move on, but was this kind of in your hopes and your goals down the road, potentially?
You know what's interesting about this is that, you know, as a number 2 guy, you sit there and you make all kinds of recommendations, and some of them are a little crazy, and some Larry would be like, what are you thinking? And then you move into this role, and I've been in this role before. Sometimes it's okay being the number 2 guy too. But Larry and I had a lot of conversations, and he said, Kevin, it's time for you. And coming from him, it means the world for me. And, you know, for me, I hope I served him loyally and gave him good counsel, and, you know, and that's the reason why I'm here.
Kevin, is rebuilding a dirty word in your mind?
Yes.
Even if, let's just say, ball doesn't come back.
I've been, you know, it's semantics, but at the end of the day, when you rebuild, it's tearing it down. But I don't believe in tearing it down, because then you can tear down your culture, and you can't teach guys how to win. And part of it is, you see teams. Some teams are out of the playoffs 7, 8, 9 years. We don't do that. That's not what we want to do. We're not afraid to make adjustments. So I'm good with retool, and maybe rebuild is a little bit of a bad word.
Kevin, how do you feel about how Nate handled the team this year, leadership-wise, his first year?
You know, Nate was tough on the team. He's a sergeant. You know, my nickname when he's been too tough is I'll walk into his office and say, hey, how's Sarge doing? And but what's great about Nate and myself and our relationship, you know, this sounds a little crazy, but I embrace, and I think he did too, hard times. Because when you go through some hard times, you realize who you want to be in the trenches. I'm telling you 100%, Nate is a guy you want in the trenches all day, every day. He stays calm waters. He understands big pictures. And as good a relationship as him and I have, and we talk very directly, we talk all the time, I expect that to expand again, you know. I enjoy that part of it. And as president, I have to coach him too. And he's okay with that. Sometimes I want to come after a game and say, why did we do that? Or the next day, I never do it after the game. But the next day, I want to know, well, why were you guys thinking that? And you know what? 95% of the time, I agree with him. And the 5% time I don't, I let him know, and we have a conversation. It's never out of animosity. He knows I got his back. I know he's got my back. And at the end of the day, he has a little saying with the team that they all come together that I totally buy into, and that is, we are one. We are one. The business side, the basketball side, we are one. And so I look forward to embracing that relationship even more.
You've had the opportunity to play for and work with Larry Brown and Donnie Walsh both. Can you talk about their influences on you, professionally speaking?
Well, you know, I bright up when I talk about Donnie, because, you know, Donnie was coached by Dean Smith, who coached Larry Brown. And so Donnie will start talking about, you know, let's look at, you know, shell drill and, you know, baseline, drive baseline. He'll come up with some term, and I'll go, oh, my gosh, that reminds me just of Larry Brown, you know, him being roommates. You know, I feel like Larry Brown gave me a foundation of basketball. The way it's played the right way. You've heard Larry Brown say the right way a million times, but he's tough. But I'm very thankful to have played for Coach Brown as well.